During the second half of the 1990s and the first half of the 2000s, extreme sports video games enjoyed a healthy amount of popularity, driven in no small part due to the runaway success of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for the original PlayStation released by Activision in 1999. That game was insanely popular, so popular in fact that it spawned a series of games that lasted for many years. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, 3, 4, Tony Hawk's Underground, Underground 2, American Wasteland, Project 8, Downhill Jam. We have seen remakes and then remasters. The series continues to be popular. In fact, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are getting their versions of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 a little later this year, and I believe the Switch is getting one as well. So skateboarding video games were certainly very popular, and even before Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, we had games like Street Skater, which I've opened on this show. We also had Grind Session, which came out after Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and is basically a love letter to that game. It was published by Sony. I've also opened that one on the show. I've also talked about Razor Freestyle Scooter, which is basically Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but on a scooter instead of a skateboard. We've opened that one on the show. So we've done a lot of extreme games up to this point. But skateboarding wasn't it in terms of extreme sports video games. You saw a ton of snowboarding games. Cool Boarders series for the original PlayStation, most notably Cool Boarders 2, which really captured a lot of attention when it had come out in 1997. But the Cool Boarders series, Big Air, Freestyle Board in 99, then for the PlayStation 2, we saw the release and the debut of the SSX series, which is probably the most well-known snowboarding game around. 1080 snowboarding for the Nintendo 64. So snowboarding was covered and skateboarding was covered. And so was BMX biking. BMX was very popular as well. I personally believe that the success of the BMX subgenre has a lot to do with the success of a game called Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX, which originally came out for the PlayStation and then later on for the Dreamcast, before also seeing a sequel, actually two sequels kind of sort of, if you include BMX XXX, but for the PlayStation 2 as well as the Xbox and the GameCube. There's one other BMX game, though, that I'm going to be opening brand new on this show today. I've been kind of excited about this because it's a Midway sports game, and I love my Midway sports games, as many of you know. But a lot of people, when they look back on Midway sports games, they tend to forget about this one, and I kind of understand why, because it released under the radar a little bit. First, a little bit of background. If you were watching extreme sports events on TV, you were only watching one type of event, and that was on ESPN. It was ESPN's X Games series, which was absolutely fantastic. Tony Hawk landing his 900 during the X Games in 1999 really helped to catapult the success of his video game later that year. So X Games was popular. NBC saw the success that ESPN was having with X Games and decided that they were going to do their own version called the Gravity Games. And Midway so happened to sign a license to produce Gravity Games material. And the game that I'm going to show you is the game that was the fruit of that agreement. This game came out in 2002. It is called Gravity Games Bike, Street, Vert, and Dirt. And yeah, you can see the price tag on here. I did pay more than $4.99 for this, but I've wanted to open a game like this for a while because A, it's a Midway game, and B, because it's lesser known in terms of the extreme sports games. We've talked about the big ones on this show, and I've shown off and opened up some that are very important to the genre. This one, however, not a lot of people remember, so I think it would be kind of cool to open this up to see what it's about and to talk about it a bit further. So, when we take a look in the back of the case, Err on the Side of Insanity, and we do have a laundry list of bullet points telling us why we should own the game. You can see some of the screenshots as well. It is on a DVD-ROM, and there are plenty of bullet points here. The exclusive Gravity Games license for the 12 people who probably cared, because nobody knew what the Gravity Games were. I'm sorry. It is what it is. You were watching X Games, and maybe you were watching Gravity Games on NBC on like a Saturday afternoon if you had nothing else to do, but that happened few and far between. 21 characters to choose from, including edgy fantasy writers and 7 top pros. 10, not 16, 10 huge freestyle environments, 5 insane game modes, Get mad air with more than 1,500 mind-blowing tricks. Okay, that has my attention. Killer music from Disturbed, Sevendust, 311, Edema, Sugar Ray, and more. You have to remember, this is 2002. I am an unabashed nu metal music fan. I know that genre of music tends to make more people angry than it does incite fans, but I am a big fan of that kind of music. So these artists, that's right up my alley. I am good. I am sold so far. Let's keep going. Get up close and personal with the pro riders and behind-the-scenes DVD footage. Plus, DVD extras, including real Gravity Games competition footage. Check out Fuzzy ride in his backyard, whoever Fuzzy is. Fuzzy Hall, he's one of the pro riders in the game. And don't miss rider interviews and motion capture for the game. Okay. I mean, I'm willing to try it. I'm willing to see what it is about. Also, interestingly enough, if you see down there the logo, it is Midway Sports Asylum. So it's kind of like a subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary. Midway gave rise to Midway Sports, which is fine, thanks to the incredible success of NBA Jam and NFL Blitz. Why not, right? And then Midway Sports gave rise to another mini company or mini line of games called Midway Sports Asylum, and that is where this comes in. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to open this up, and we're going to see, first of all, we're going to see what kind of shape the game is in, because this game has been kicking around now for almost 20 years, and we'll see what's on the inside. So we're going to get this guy open and check it out. I actually had an open copy of this, but I wanted a sealed copy because, well, like I said, it's a Midway game, and I like all things Midway, so I wanted to be able to open it brand new. I actually didn't buy this when it was brand new, by the way. Oh, I always show this. There it is, Gravity Games bike right there at the top. I did not buy this when it had first come out, and I really don't have any reasons why I didn't. Maybe it's just because the game just kind of flew under the radar. I remember seeing it in a couple of video game magazines, but it really didn't speak to me, and I was more interested at the time in playing like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games anyway. That was really taking up a lot of my time in terms of extreme sports games. I cannot get this label off. Come on now. Well, I guess we're just going to open it like this. So I'm going to force it open. There we go. So when we take a look on the inside, it's not that exciting. We have the Gravity Games bike instruction manual, and we have the DVD-ROM over there. So we're going to take the instruction manual out because we don't need to look at the disc. And on the back of the instruction manual, we have ads for one great game and one game that, as a matter of fact, I just opened NHL Hits 2003 very recently for this show. MLB Slugfest 2003. I will talk about this maybe later this year in a repeat episode. MLB Slugfest just did not translate well to an extreme sports experience like NFL Blitz and NHL Hits and NBA Jam had. I'll talk about that more in another episode down the line now. So when we open this up, unfortunately, it is in black and white. It's not in color, which is too bad. There's no story or setup or anything. It just takes you right to the game controls, and that's going to be the most important thing when you're talking about an extreme sports game. You need to know how to control it. You need to know how to pull off the tricks and how to control your biker or skater or snowboarder or whoever it is. The air tricks are interesting. We do have some multiple directional presses followed by a square or a circle. So it's much like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater setup in that for specials, you need to do something a little bit extra with your D-pad or with your stick in order to get those moves to be pulled off. So we have Quick Start, we have Career, Free Ride, Multiplayer, and Options. There's a sound adjuster. There is a playlist editor, which is kind of nice. So if there's some songs in a playlist that you don't care about, like if you're not big into Edema, for example, you can go ahead and turn their music off. I was okay with them, but that's just me. So music is a big part of the game, and again, was a big part of the extreme sports environment at the time. Music was just as important to any kind of experience as the sport itself. The two went hand in hand, and for this particular game, that nu metal scene is really what Midway was going for. Get the jukebox, you have high scores, the FMV viewer, if you're good enough to unlock them. Here's where you can find the killer FMVs from the game. Simply press up or down on the left analog stick or directional buttons to highlight an unlocked FMV. There are also cheat codes. Gosh, remember those before the internet was a thing and before like paid DLC was a thing? You could actually enter cheat codes and unlock stuff in games without having to pay for it. Yeah, those are here in the game prominently with a cheat code portion of the menu. There's a heads-up display that does show scoring as well as time and the trick names. So again, it looks very similar as you would expect, as a lot of these games did during the time period. So you have rider selections, bike selections, combos. Performing combinations of tricks is tough at first, but with a little practice, you'll be doing combos all the time. Combo tricks are easier to do in the air, mainly due to the fact that you have some time to execute the tricks, so nothing really surprising there. The way that this is going to be different, of course, is not what it says in the manual, but how it executes on the screen, and I can tell you from a little bit of experience, the execution is not quite as slick as it would be in other games, which is unfortunate because the idea and the setup, I think, is pretty solid. There are level tasks and level-specific tasks here as well. In addition to the normal level tasks, some tasks require you to perform actions or cause things to happen. For example, the Acid Factory stage will require you to release the gas. This is something they're pulling from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, by the way. This means you'll have to ride around until you find the valves necessary to release the gas. So, thank you, Neversoft, for giving Midway this kind of idea. Competition riding. If you've completed enough objectives for a level to successfully make it to a competition, you'll find that points count more than ever. So again, building off of the Tony Hawk idea, after you complete a couple of stages, you have to compete in a competition. I am good with that. That's why I love the old, I hate to use the term old because it's not that old, but the original Tony Hawk style where it's a couple of stages that you have to go through, and then there's a competition, then a couple more, and then a competition. I love that. Once we started to get away from those with the Tony Hawk series where the competitions became less and less important, I was a little less and less enthused with those games. So there are multiplayer modes here, grind attack, best run, high five, team attack. So that's cool. You have some different ways to play multiplayer. And of course, you are playing multiplayer, couch multiplayer. So you're playing in the same house, which is how a lot of us played multiplayer games back in the day. It does show you all the different riders, Andre Ellison, Tim Fuzzy Hall, Dennis McCoy. So they all get their little mini biographies. Lee Ramsdahl, Matt Berenger, Jamie Bestwick, Rule Erickson, as well as Bobby Bones, who is a riding skeleton. And of course, Bobby Bones was born in Salem, Massachusetts, because why not? Of course, though, Salem is for witches, not for skeletons. It could have been anywhere. Anyway, Candyman is here. Candyman has had the choice ever since he was young. Go the way of the father, the dentist, or pay a visit to his mother, her liquor store full of sweets. Okay, way to be edgy there, Midway, for sure. Hottie Babe. Now, how original is this? You couldn't even give her like a name, just Hottie Babe. Come on, man. Do better than that. Bird Brains. That's foul. Ramp Granny. Ronaldo Marcellus. British biker Freon. Angus Sigmund. Pierce, just one name, Pierce. Anthony Cruz, Glass Eye Gus. A veteran of the bike scene, Glass Eye Gus has excelled professionally despite a major physical obstacle, the lack of two functioning eyes. The dead eye, now replaced with glass, was lost when the then 2-year-old Gus took his tricycle outside his upstairs bedroom window and rode off the roof of his house with mixed results. So that right there is pretty much like a pull from Jackass, which surprisingly I'm okay with. Termite, who is apparently a werewolf, and Chris Creature Beecher. Okay, so those are the fantasy riders. Got a whole bunch of different brands here. If you want your product placement, you're definitely going to find your product placement in this game. Vans, Icy, Hyundai, Mongoose, New Era is here, S'mores, Poppers. Okay. And then we get to the soundtrack, and this is one of my favorite parts about the game, just like I said. 311s You Wouldn't Believe, which I like a lot. A Demon's Giving In, which is also on the Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance soundtrack, I think. Disturbed's Down with the Sickness, that's a good get. Revelie's What You Got. Seven Dust Praise, which I believe was in another game, although I'm struggling to remember what it was. Sugar Ray's Answer the Phone, Verbal Assault's Alive. Those are the songs that are listed here, and then a whole bunch of people that were involved in the making of the game, should you be interested in that at all. And then ads for Dr. Muto and for Defender. I don't have a lot of recent experience with the game. I'm looking forward to the summer when I'll have some free time and I'll be able to put this through its paces a little more and give more of an opinion on it. But what's more notable about the game is just it is a byproduct of its time period. This early 2000s era where you had a little bit of attitude, you had that jackass feel going on. At the same time, you had extreme sports, which are still dominant, both in video games and on television. People were watching X Games quite a bit. Few people were watching Gravity games, and people were playing Tony Hawk games a lot. So it is definitely a byproduct of its time. And if I'm being completely honest, I've talked about the fact that I love the 6th generation of consoles. This particular time period in video game console history, talking about the entire period, not the 1 year, but just the time period from like 2001 through like 2006. That's the period that I look back on console gaming in general as being just so enjoyable. The graphics were very much improved from where they were, where we saw a lot of games running at 60 frames per second. Thanks to the advent of DVD-ROMs, especially for the Xbox and for the PlayStation 2, we were getting a lot of behind-the-scenes things that we hadn't seen before, where you could see some footage or some interviews or some extra features that you just didn't get in an original PlayStation game or an N64 game because it didn't have the storage space available. So DVD-ROM was helpful. The improved graphics were helpful. Obviously, the improved sound, the variety in the video game libraries at the time. Pretty much anything was fair game, and everything was fair game at the time, and that was something that was liked as well. And we were getting introduced to online multiplayer and more, but it was just that. It was optional. People were still playing couch multiplayer as much as they were playing online multiplayer, and nothing was tied to being online all the time. You didn't have to deal with game patches, you didn't have to deal with DLC, you didn't have to deal with in-game pre-order bonuses. It was just extra. It was something else. It was adding to the experience, not an essential part of the experience, which unfortunately is one of the big problems that I have with modern gaming these days, but that is a video for another time. As always, my friends, I thank you very much for watching this episode of Unsealed. I will talk to you very soon, but until that next time comes, see you later.